I'm going to begin. I suppose we are already 37 people on board. We are, most of us, I hope you are listening to me. Maybe we can check that. Somebody from you can write in the chat that you are being able to listen to me. Oh, perfect. So many of you have already said that. So we have been able to set this class. It's somehow a class. It's an online class. John Dardis wanted to begin this session, but we haven't been able to do it. So I'm just the only one now being able to use the camera. So what I will show you, and we will explain more or less, is this Ignatian mission cycle and process. It's about planning. It's mainly about planning. It's how to plan in an Ignatian way. And I'm going to follow this presentation. You already have the presentation online. You can download it if you wish. And also a couple of documents that at the end of the session I will explain a little bit to you. So I'm going to focus on those two things: the Ignatian mission cycle or Ignatian planning cycle, and also inside it, I'm going to explain also the process, the mission process. It's something very simple, I hope, and I hope also you can more or less enjoy it. You can find it useful. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about this cycle of the mission. It's the planning cycle. It's mainly the planning cycle. So I'm going to try to, well, first of all, to try to make some precisions. This is going to be focused on collaboration among apostolic works. I'm not going to speak mainly about one apostolic work. I'm not going to speak about an institution. I'm mainly going to speak about apostolic works, several apostolic works. That is, this might be applied to a province or to a conference or at the global level, but also it can be applied at a city where we have several apostolic works of the society and we want to work together. So this is mainly about provinces, cities, conferences, somewhere where we have several apostolic works, different apostolic works. It's a cycle because it's going to be applied for several years. It can last for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years. That's usually the planning cycle, as you know. 3, 4, 5 years should be enough to develop a plan, a cycle of a plan. And as I have told you, it integrates the different aspects of our mission. It's not only the pastoral area of it, or either the social area. It's applied to several areas, several apostolic sectors. So the cycle begins with the design of the plan. We begin designing an integral response, an integral apostolic response. It's the moment to build up our response. Usually when we plan, we usually speak about this first phase, this first moment of designing. When we say we are planning, we are designing, mainly designing. But in fact, the cycle involves something else. It also involves the development of the response in different ministries. So once we have planned, we have to implement the plan. We have to take the concrete steps to develop these plans. And this is made in different ministries. And for some years, we develop the plan. Finally, at the end of the cycle, we need to evaluate the response. We take time to evaluate it properly, and at the end of it, of course, again, we begin the cycle. When we speak about the planning cycle, we are mainly speaking about this. This is the usual planning cycle. It involves the design, the building up the plan, then the development of the response, and finally, an evaluation. And I will try to, well, of course, we are trying to include some Ignatian values in this cycle, so as to speak about the cycle of the mission in the Society of Jesus. When we say in the Society of Jesus, we mean that we are including Ignatian values. And that's what I'm going to try to do, to include some important Ignatian values inside this process, this cycle. So first of all, I focus on the design of the integral apostolic response. Then the first step we need to take when designing is some kind of analysis. This analysis is very important and should involve two sides. One, an internal analysis, and another, an external analysis. So when we speak about the internal analysis, we are mainly speaking about the strengths and weaknesses that we have. It involves some kind of evaluation. We can say some kind of examine, the Ignatian examine. On the other hand, we also need to do some external analysis. What's happening around us? What's happening in reality? How is God working in our reality? That is some kind of contemplation of reality. We have to be aware of what's going on and at the same time to try to see where God is working, present and working, trying to give life, trying to liberate, suffering, and also working for us. And probably one of the important Ignatian attitudes in this moment, in this first step, is interior knowledge. As you know, Saint Ignatius speaks about interior knowledge in different moments of the spiritual exercises. And interior knowledge is not only analytical, it's also something synthetical, no? It's a synthesis of what we see. It's not something also detached from reality. We feel very much embedded in reality. We feel that we are involved in it. It's not a cold look at reality. It's also something that involves our affection and finally also our commitment. As you see, this analysis that has to take some Ignatian perspectives is the kind of work that we do when we do our SWOT analysis. That is, examining our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The second step that is involved also in the designing is the commitment. So once we have seen what's going on in us and around us in the reality, we have to commit ourselves. And that includes the mission and the vision. The mission is what we do, what Jesuits do. We have a very good expression of our mission in GC 32, Decree 4. We are at the service of faith and for the promotion of justice. Service of faith and promotion of justice. It was a way of expressing our mission. As you may remember also in our formula in 1550, Saint Ignatius expressed also the mission of the society, including both the spiritual side of it and also the deeds of mercy, the works of mercy. Well, that's the mission, what we do. But also we need to include the vision, Where do we want to be in 5 years' time, in 3, 4, 5 years' time? Where do we want to be at the end of our cycle? What are we going to evaluate when we finalize our cycle? Where can we reach when we finalize our cycle? That is, the vision is the next step, no? The next step after several years when we have developing our plan. In order to express our mission and vision, we need two very important Ignatian attitudes. One is freedom. We need to be free. We are not going to have a good vision, either a good mission, unless we are free. And unless we feel this indifference that usually St. Ignatius asks us to have. And on the other hand, we need to be generous. The moment of planning is a moment of generosity and of freedom. If those two attitudes are not there, we are finally going to repeat what we usually do. And that's not what we want to do. We want really something new. And the third step in this design is also the planning. So we don't need only the mission and vision, but we also need some strategic goals. And in order to do that, we will require creativity. It's a moment of creativity. The analysis does not involve much creativity. It's a way of listening, that's all. But in this case, in the case of planning, of setting strategic goals, that's the moment of creativity, trying to accomplish in the best way the mission and vision that we have expressed. So as you see, this first step, this first moment of the plan is a moment in which we can really involve many of the attitudes that we have in our tradition, in our Ignatian tradition. So this is the initial planning. I'm going to say just a word on the second step of the cycle. I was telling you the design, then the development. Just a word on this because I'm going to focus on that later on during this hour that we are going to share. This is where I'm going to share the process of the mission. When we try to develop the response, I will speak about the process of the mission. And I'm going to focus then right now on the evaluation. At the end of the cycle, as I was telling you, we need to evaluate what we have done. It's a very important moment. We cannot finalize the cycle unless we do it well, evaluating what we have done. And there we can have some things to say, some areas of analysis that we have. First of all, it's about us. What has happened to us? To what extent have we been transformed as an apostolic body? And we need to check this. That is, we need to check also our spiritual situation. Have we become more generous? Have we become more free? Have we improved our institutional ways of responding to the situations that we have? Are we better? Have we grown? Are we collaborating better with our colleagues? That is what has happened to us. That's a very important area in which we have to see, to have a look on. Second is about our service, not only about our transformation, but about our service. Let's say that we speak about the faith and justice service. How much has it improved? To what extent is it better? Are we offering a better apostolic service, or haven't we grown? Haven't we been able to grow? So this is a second area of analysis. And finally, I would say that there is a third one. The first two are very clear. Those two, know how much we have changed and how much our service has changed. But the third one, the third area of analysis is about our impact in the church, in the Christian community, and our impact in our society, in our civil societies. That is, have we promoted stronger lay groups, lay Christian groups? Have we also promoted better committed citizens? Has our society, civil society, and our church been able to grow because of our action? That is, we need to evaluate also our way of collaborating and promoting the church and the society we live in. Two attitudes, Ignatian attitudes in this evaluation. The first one is gratitude, because whatever we have been able to do finally has been the work of God. It's not our work. It's that God has helped us to do something. God has been working through us. God has been present and has been active in us. And it's also a time for sorrow. Probably there have been things that we haven't been able to do, sometimes because we were lazy or not brave enough, and some things that we did not do well, we did not do properly. A time for sorrow. These are those attitudes that St. Ignatius asks us to have in the time of the examen. So this is mainly the evaluation. I come back to the cycle. So as you see, I have been expressing to you and speaking to you about the design of the planning, the initial plan, and also about the evaluation. And I have tried to include some Ignatian values in order to make the cycle of the mission in the Society of Jesus, not just a normal common planning that anybody in any institution can lead, but a cycle that is embedded in our tradition. Let me put it in this way, a little bit more developed, but I have been talking to you about these 3 steps of the design, building up an integral apostolic response, and also about evaluating the response. I'm missing this second step. I will come to it in a minute. So if we come back now, if we try to reinitiate the cycle, when we finalize the evaluation, this becomes the internal analysis for the new cycle. So after finishing a cycle, we do the evaluation, and that's the information that we have for the new part of analysis, internal analysis, and then we would begin another cycle of the mission. So I'm going to focus right now in this second step, and I'm going to devote a little bit more time on it. So this is about the process of the mission, how we develop the mission. And as I was telling you, I'm going to focus not in a unique institution, but I'm trying to focus in several institutions, in several apostolic sectors. We can be working together. As I tell you, this is the same as speaking about the process of the mission. Well, as you know, in most of our provinces, we work today in apostolic sectors. Let's say the education apostolic sector, or higher education sector, or pastoral sector, or social sector, or even the spiritual sector. Well, sectors are very good for internal collaboration. If I work in a school, in a high school, and then I can meet some other colleagues from another school, we learn from each other, we exchange some good practices, sometimes we can try to do things together. They work, in sectors, sectors work in the same area and can easily share resources and reach new initiatives that require bigger scale. In some cases, well, sectors work really well and work very much together. The problems is when the problems arise when we try to collaborate among sectors. There are difficulties when we try to collaborate among different sectors because our activities, our core businesses are quite different. And as I was trying to express in these 2 images, no? So you see, we use very different tools, and then it is very difficult for us to collaborate. That's why we need new perspectives for our mission. And that's what I'm going to try to do with this process of the mission. So the process of the mission is a model that can help us think a little bit out of the box. So it's a new, well, I would say it's another perspective of our mission. It's not a perspective that looks with the glasses of the sectors, but in another way, looking at the mission as a process. It's just a model, and it's going to be just a diagram. So as diagrams are usually, this one also is quite simple and has its own limitations. But sometimes the simplicity allows us to reflect a little bit more, and that's what I would like to do with you. This is the main diagram. This is the only diagram that I'm going to share in the rest of the session that we have. and I'm going to try to give some words on it to explain a little bit it. Let us say that when Jesuits we arrived to a new place, first of all we need people. We need people. We try to listen to them. We try to be as close to them as we can. We try to accompany them, be one with them. Try to understand the people that we encounter. Try to see what are their difficulties, what are the things that they do well, where God is also active and present there. We accompany people. But as soon as we begin accompanying them, we see usually that we have some resources that we can share with them. We have some things that we can do, and probably they cannot. So we begin to serve. We are really usually very keen at service. We like serving. This is much in the DNA of our vocation. But we never stop there. After serving or during our service, while we serve, we also think about what's going on, about the situation, about how we can improve the service we offer. We try to investigate sometimes to make some research. This can be done in a more professional way or in a less professional way, but some kind of reflection, thinking, investigation, research is usually also involved. After that, we raise awareness of what we see. We try to tell people what we have seen. We try to share with others what we are involved in. We raise awareness, and this is very important. It's usually very much present among us in our missions. And finally, we also aspire to transform the society we live in, the church we are in. We look for transformation to transform the lives of the people. Usually, we speak here about advocacy. Advocacy is a way of transformation, speaking for the good of others, in the sake of others. For the sake of others, in order that they can improve their situations. So as you see, and this is quite a chronological framework, what we usually do as apostolic works of the society, what we usually do, as I tell you, is accompany, serve, think, reflect, raise awareness, and transform or advocate. This is something that we have learned in the last decades. This is not something new. It has been going on in the society since the beginning, but I think that we have understood this process much better in the last decades. And as I will try to explain to you in a moment, all our activities, all our different activities can be placed somewhere in this process. That's why it's a new perspective for all our activities. Well, the thing is that if we are honest enough, we see that no institution can take care, can respond to all these elements of our mission. An apostolic work can be very good at research, but it's very difficult that the same people that are very good at research, they are also ready to accompany and are at the grassroots level accompanying people and seeing what's going on there. So it's very difficult that just one institution, and much less just a group of people, can respond comprehensively to this full process of the mission. This process, as I say, there can only be completed through broad collaboration among apostolic works and sectors. In that way, collaboration is essential. If we want to do this properly, collaboration is essential. It's not something that we can choose to do or not. No, collaboration is really essential. I'm going to say some more words on each one of these elements of the process. Let me say a little bit about first accompanying. This is the most important spiritual source in our life. Usually we live on the meetings that we have with people, the encounters that we have with people. When we found ourselves like naked, no, among people, and we see that we can be another human being just encountering them. How much our lives have been transformed because of the poor, because of meeting the poor, because of meeting wonderful people that serve them, wonderful, generous people. Accompaniment is the main spiritual source in our lives, and it's usually the place where at the end of our day we examine the day and we find that God has been with us, trying to meet with us in the eyes of our fellows, of our fellow human companions. It follows the dynamic of incarnation, insertion, as the very little child Jesus took flesh. The second person of the Trinity took flesh in the little child Jesus. Well, we also incarnate in one reality, in one local reality, with very few local people. This is the accompaniment is the condition for credibility. Let's imagine that we are working for migrants as we do, or for refugees as we do in the Jesuit refugee service. Well, sometimes we go to politicians and they listen to us. They listen because we have something to say. And sometimes we may be tempted to think that they listen to us because we are very wise, we know a lot, and we express ourselves very well. But no, usually they listen to us because we are accompanying the refugees in the streets, in the refugee camps. This is the condition for our credibility. We are credible because we are there. That's why accompaniment is so important. And accompaniment is the space, the place where we create horizontal relationships. Our relationships with others are very much horizontal in this element, in the accompaniment element. Let's go into service. As you know, as you remember from the life of Saint Ignatius, Saint Ignatius wanted from the very beginning of his transformation, of his transformation, of his vocation, he felt the desire to help the souls, ayudar a las ánimas, help the souls. We have been called to serve, and I think this is very much in our way of behaving. We Jesuits, we like serving. So many times that Father Nicholas told us that our life was all about serving others. Well, service is very important in our mission. It usually requires institutions. So as soon as we begin serving, we see that we require some other people working with us and some kind of space where we can offer those services. We require institutions. Sometimes they grow a lot. They are very big, and you may know in your provinces some institutions that they began in a very small, tiny manner, and today they are really big, very important institutions. So service usually requires institutions. Big institutions have their own risks. Sometimes we feel complacent about them, and we feel proud about them. The risk is of complacency and pride, and this is one of the sins that we have as Jesuits. Well, finally, as you know, in the service relationship, the kind of relationship that we develop is asymmetrical. It's not horizontal. It is asymmetrical. We behave from above, and we serve those that in that kind of relationship are at the bottom. And this is something to take into account because it is always a little bit risky. Let's say a word on research. Research is the reflection that we do, the thinking that we have about our experience. Research is done in dialogue with the academia, but the kind of research that we are speaking about here is a research done on experience, thinking about how we accompany, how we serve, about the people, the situation that the people are facing. It's a reflection based on experience. It's not just academical. Well, we were saying something about creativity, no? Research is very much important for creativity. Unless we think about the reality we are in, we are not going to add any plus in what we do. We need to think. That's why it's so dangerous in our lives to be overactive, no? To be workaholic, to be continuously working. We need some time for reflection, to have some more depth. And that's also one of the characteristics that research gives us, provides us. Finally, something that Father Koldenbach used to say once and again in all the meetings that he had with the universities in the society. Well, you need to do research, but this research has to take the point of view of the poor and has to be done in order to support and help them. It has to be from the poor and for the poor. That's one of the nuances of our research. The word on raising awareness. Well, raising awareness is about communication. It's about communicating ideas, but also images, communicating feelings. It's about speaking about people. It's about stories of people. And we are very good at, we are usually very good at this. We Jesuits, we are quite good at raising awareness, trying people to understand better what's going on in reality, what we have seen here in our accompaniment and in our service. Well, we have to do this in two different publics. Today we need to use the online ways, and that's what we are doing this afternoon, morning, or evening, depending where you are today. And it's a way of creating a new culture. When we communicate ideas, images, feelings, we are trying to create a new culture. It's also about celebration. Raising awareness is also about celebration, ways of celebration. Finally, a word on transformation, where we try to transform the society we live in, the church we live in, to defend those that are suffering in positions of suffer inside the church, inside our societies, as I was telling you, and this usually involves contact with decision makers. And in our tradition, it has been very important to be in contact with decision makers. And St. Ignatius was very clear about it. Once there was one Jesuit that approached him, telling him, I have been offered to become the confessor of a king. I think I should reject this offering, this service that I have been asked, but I want to consult it to you. And St. Ignatius was very clear. No, you have to say yes to that offer, to that service. You have to say yes, because you can do a lot of good. And we know that there are people in power that have the capacity to take decisions and to transform some smaller or bigger things, but that can be very important for the good of the people we accompany and serve. Well, probably when we accompany and serve, we are at the frontiers. We are at a very local level. We have very deep roots in reality. Most of our institutions are rooted locally and try to be at the frontiers. And then at the right side of the process, we are probably creating bridges. We are trying to put in contact people that can have some kind of influence in reality with people that are either suffering or in a bad situation or in a situation in need. They may be our students, they may be refugees, as we were saying, or other kind of people. But here we create bridges. As I was telling you also, this is very much local at the left, and at the right side, this is much more global. We need some kind of broader collaboration in order to grow in research, raising awareness and transformation. This is the main area for networking. When we speak about networking, we are probably trying to focus on these kind of elements of our mission. Here, when we network, we try usually to share best practices. Here, we try to be stronger. We try to have clearer messages about what we want to communicate, and we try to have a broader impact in people that can take decisions. I continue. Well, these elements are there usually in our provinces, but in fact, we cannot say that accompaniment is the 20% of our mission today in our provinces, and then service another 20%, research another 20%, and so on. Probably some of these elements take much more importance and take much more space in our mission. Probably service is the main one. But I want to tell you, I want to share with you where are usually our institutions in this process. Well, as you see, our communities usually they are able to accompany people. Sometimes we have to recognize, we have to acknowledge, we have to admit that they are little small bunkers, but they can also be open to people and ready to accompany others. Our parishes are usually ready to serve, to offer service to a community, but they also accompany people. They are close to the people. Well, then we have social works that serve, that are able to serve the poor. We have also schools that usually offer an education service, but they can also accompany others. We have universities that make a service, that provide a service, and usually they also have some kind of research. Sometimes they are able also to transform. We have shrines that offer pastoral help and that offer sacramentary services. And we have retreat centers that mainly offer spiritual services. Then we have publications such as reviews. They usually, in our case, in the case of the society, they are usually in this big field of raising awareness. Some of these publications have behind them some kind of research and thinking. That's why they are able to provide articles of good quality. We have, in some places, we have centers of faith and culture. They raise awareness and they also make some kind of research. We have social centers that try to make research, to raise awareness and to transform, and to do it in a comprehensive way. And then finally, we also have very good, very well-known, renowned individual Jesuits in our provinces that are able to write in the press. They are able to raise their voices. They appear sometimes in the televisions, and they usually try to raise awareness and do some kind of transformation. So there we are. As you see, all our institutions can be placed in this process. As I was telling you, service is our main element. It's the biggest element that we can have. This is where we have most of our resources, most of our human and material resources. That's where we have our biggest institutions. The danger is that we forget the rest of the elements, because they are also very difficult to fund, to support economically. So then we can focus on this service and forget the rest of the elements. But as you see, there is some kind of integrality that the full process offers that cannot be covered only by service. And then we also have a strength in raising awareness. We are good and we are well known for raising awareness. And that's why so many Jesuits are called to give a lecture here or there, to give some kind of discourse in one congregation. Well, we are well known here. We also have very good resources in this area. Well, these elements, as I told you, were always present for the service of faith. They were always present there. So we were used to accompany people spiritually, to serve them sacramentally, to make research in the areas of theology and philosophy, to raise awareness in this faith, in the order of faith and culture, and to advocate. But the link was weak. We had an important link here in between our research in theology and philosophy and our way of raising awareness, of creating a new culture. And the Second Vatican Council cannot be understood without this very important link. And as you know, we had at least 44 to 50 theologians in the Second Vatican Council who were very important, just trying to bring their research, their basic research on theology and philosophy in order to make a change in the culture of the church. And they did it, of course. The bishops at that time did it with the help of these theologians. And also, in the case of liberation theology, these theologians always try to express their theology based on the accompaniment of Christian-based communities. But as I tell you, as a process, the link among the different elements was weak. Well, in the case of justice, we usually had just accompaniment and service. This could be understood under the concept of charity. And here in research, awareness raising and transformation, we can understand the area of promotion of justice. So before 1949, we can say, 1949, there was a very important letter of Father General Janssens, about the social apostasy. Before that, we Jesuits, we were focused on these two areas. And after GC 1375, we try to develop much more these three new areas. In the civil society, we speak about accompaniment and service, and these are charitable works. And here we have NGOs of human rights, that they try to develop the research, awareness raising, and transformation. Let us speak about Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, or other NGOs, important NGOs. But there is some kind of integral service that we offer as Jesuits, that it is offered by the society, which is very important, and it involves accompaniment, service, research, awareness raising, and transformation. Well, I'm going to move on a little bit, and I'm trying to say a word about the spiritual movement in the process of the mission. In this process of the mission, there is also a spiritual movement, spiritual dynamic. We remember how St. Ignatius, in the spiritual exercises, in this contemplation to attain love, he says that God works and labors in all things. God is working and laboring in all things. That was probably what he discovered in Marisa when he was looking at the tiny river Carboner there in Marisa. He realized that God was present, calling him and working, trying him to become involved, collaborating with him. So what does God do? What does He do? He accompanies those in need, those that need faith, those that need help, accompanying those in need. This is accompaniment. So many people we see in our churches that they are praying just because they want to be accompanied by God. God is the main companions. Well, this is the area for accompaniment. God is serving at the feet of the people as Jesus did in the Last Supper. And this is a call also for us to serve. And God is also allowing us to live in truth. Truth is so important in our lives. Maybe the first week of the spiritual exercises is all devoted to truth, to trying to find truth in our realities. But also when we contemplate the world in this contemplation of the incarnation, we are trying to find truth. And that's where research appears. We also, God is trying to make his name known, a name of love. And this is about awareness raising. And finally, God is working for transforming these communities and societies, our churches and our societies, because this is a wonderful work. This is a wonderful world, but on the other hand, there are many things that need to be changed. That's where transformation arises. So this is what how God works and labors, and we respond trying to collaborate. This is our response. We collaborate. And by doing that, we attain a deep experience of God that renews us and renews also our mission. That's where we find God, active in all things, present and active in all things. That renews us in gratitude, in sorrow, and in capacity to offer ourselves. So, God working and laboring, we collaborate, we have a deeper spiritual experience, and then we try to renew our mission, we try to get involved in all these areas. Okay, so I have gone through all this cycle, as I was telling you, the initial plan, then the development of the response, the evaluation, cycle after cycle, let's say 3, 4, 5 years, how we integrate the evaluation in the contemplation of reality and our internal analysis, and then how we develop our process of emission with new perspectives that can be useful. Last thing, and with this I finish. When we speak about this process of emission, we are saying that we can do this in some apostolic preferences, in some apostolic priorities that we have in our province or in a city or at the level of a conference. We are speaking about some priorities or preferences. We cannot develop the full process in all the things that we do. It's very difficult, it's too demanding, but we can make an effort in those preferences or priorities that are really important to us. So thank you. This was the presentation that I had for you this afternoon. And here you have a beautiful view of the you have a beautiful view of the sanctuary of Loyola, the beautiful garden that we have at the back of it. So thanks for your attention. Thank you. I'm trying to see your comments. Yes, I see that now. I see the chat, I see that you have been able to see it. Sometimes there was some echo. I'm sorry for that. Yes.
Hi, Patxi. This is John.
Thank you, John. Yes, now I can see you.
And greetings to everybody. Sorry I couldn't welcome you at the start because we had some technical troubles here in Rome. This is the first webinar we have. Maybe people have questions. You can type in your questions. And we already have flagged 2 comments that should be coming up on your screen, Patxi.
Yes.
From Francesco Beccoli, the socius of the new province of EUM.
Yes, yes.
He's saying we're good at accompanying in his province, but reflection could be improved.
Yes. Yes, I think yes. So we are speaking about
that.
There are two questions from Francesco Pecorino. I agree. Sometimes it's we lack reflection, or sometimes what we have is some people that reflect very well, but it's not connected to the kind of work that we are doing. No, they are in their area. They are very important area, and what we need to do is to reflect on what we are doing in those apostolic priorities that I was telling you. No. Reflection can be done in many fields, of course, but we need to focus in these apostolic priorities or apostolic preferences, and we need to try to make a special effort. And in order to do that, we need to be in dialogue with the people at the grassroots level, and also the people at the academia. And that's where we have many resources. I think we are one religious congregation that we have many advantages to do that properly. So that would be the first comment. The second comment is about Francis Parmar. Good afternoon or good evening, Francis. Thank you for your question. Yes, you are very right. I think you are very right. So the connection you are saying, well, those people who serve don't seem to reflect, and those who reflect do not seem to have experience or direct contact. And so the problem of parallel lines, neither affecting the other. I fully agree with you. So the connection in between these two, the connection in between these 2 elements, the element of service and the element of reflection, is very important. And for that, we need some. I'm hearing some echo. In order to do that, we need some models. Sometimes, what happens to us is that what happens to us. Sorry, I'm hearing some echo also. What happens to us is that we are not able to sit down on the same table, speaking people on the ground, together with people in the universities. We seem to have different languages. We need new models to do that, and we have to try. I think we are going to learn through trying, by experience. Yes, let me see some other questions. Yeah. What is precisely new in the perspective that you have presented to us? Alvaro Mendonça was asking us. Well, I think that the perspective is new. The way of looking at this, we are organized. We are fully organized through apostolic sectors. We are fully organized by works. For us, what's important is the works and the institutions. And this is a completely different perspective on it. We are not speaking about institutions, we are not speaking about sectors, but we are speaking about the kind of work that we do. And as you may know, we are becoming poorer in accompaniment in the Society of Jesus today. As we become less, we are far away from people. And this perspective allows us to see that. I think that's the newness. But on the other hand, this newness, as I told you before, has been building up in the last decades. So it has been with us for several years. Yeah. How long do you consider it should last? Who should be involved? I found in some provinces they take too long and people get discouraged. Well, this is another question. I think you have to think about this well. I fully agree with you. Sometimes it's too long. A planning, the initial phase cannot be too long. It has to take some few months. Let's say half a year, 8 months. It depends on the complexity of the group, of the apostolic body you are dealing with. A province sometimes can be too big. And then in order to inform and involve people, you need time. But on the other hand, you have to take steps forward. Otherwise, people finally feel fed up and then they disengage. So this is also quite important, and this is something to consider. In the case of a province, even of a city, I would say that some months, 6, 8 months should be enough. But in this planning, you should be able to involve many people. Of course, it's very easy to do that in the case of the analysis, no? How are we? What do we see in our reality? It's a way also of asking people, involving them, and finally try to say that whatever you come up with is also because of their contributions. Another moment for their contribution, for their collaboration, would be at the end of the planning phase. So when we already have set the strategic goals, the mission and vision, you should be open enough to say, well, please tell me, is this what you wanted? Is this what you think that we need to do today? And you have to be open to collect their comments and also to say what they think and to try to integrate as much as they propose. In the English Canadian province, one of the mechanisms has been a leaders of editors. Yes, yes, this is very helpful. In some provinces, they do these meetings of directors of apostolates twice, 3 times in a year. Imagine that all the works of a province, they do what they do, no? They do what they do. Well, they educate in the high schools, they offer the university service in the universities and so on. Okay, but when they gather together, they have a common agenda. And this common agenda is based on these common apostolic priorities or preferences. And then they speak about what are we doing in the field of accompaniment? How are we linking our service with our reflection? How can we do better? How can we reach better our decision makers? So yes, this is a very important tool for developing the process. Meetings, annual, either annual or maybe more times in a year, meetings of directors of apostolates. In the cases of big provinces, when you have a big province, there are several apostolic sectors involved, and also you have some delegates for these sectors. The board of apostolic delegates, the board of secretaries in India, they call them secretaries, is very important. They should be able to meet together, to think about this, and this would be the main area of collaboration, their main agenda. Well, this is Roland. I don't know, Roland. I don't know where you come from. Maybe from Brazil or maybe from Portugal. Yes, you are right. Well, it's very difficult to say why this happens. I think it's all about leadership. It's very hard to say this. It's all about leadership. So the leadership is under the province, is under, if there is a city and you work there, it's about leadership. So sometimes we think in the society that, well, once we finalize our initial design of the plan, that's all. And no, that's not all at all. That's not all at all. Now we really need to begin again implementing, developing the plans, checking how they are going on, establishing some goals, trying to see indicators to evaluate to what extent we are responding into it properly. But you know, sometimes we are too lazy, and this is a source of desolation in our provinces. You may remember that Saint Ignatius in the spiritual exercises says that one of the sources of desolation is laziness, and sometimes we are too lazy because we are not free enough and we are not generous enough. Collaboration in this way requires that we involve in our institutions some of our resources in order to collaborate with others. This doesn't happen freely. We need to involve some resources. It has a price. It doesn't have usually a big price, a very high price, but it has a price. Maybe we have to involve 5% of our resources in this, but we need to do it. And if big institutions do not do that, well, then everything lags, no? Lags. Yes, and yes, this is quite, I think it's quite simple, no? Well, the human encounters are very horizontal. When I meet a person in the street and we begin speaking, we are just two human beings. We are at the same level, a woman, a man. Well, we are two human beings, just exchanging in a very horizontal way. You know, for instance, in the tradition of the workers, priests, this was very important, the horizontal relationship with people. They wanted to be at the same level of the people. That's why they involved in their works and in their causes. But when we serve, it is a little bit different. We are doing something that we have. And in that field of relationship, in the field of service, in that field of relationship, we are we are above, and the rest of the people are at the bottom. And we relate in that way. And people that we serve, they want us to serve them better, and they try us that we give them some kind of advantages. That relationship is always asymmetric. It's like the relationship that we have in a classroom, and the teacher and the students. That's always asymmetric. It has to be asymmetric. We have to accept it. That's the aspect of asymmetry in service.
Thank you so much. This has been a very engaging. There are questions coming in still.
Yes.
One is about money and finances. One is about how to move to the phase of transformation. But we're really beyond time already.
Yes.
But there'll be other webinars coming up, just to say, and that we'll be coming back to these topics in very different ways. Patxi, I just want to thank you on behalf of all the listeners. There's been great engagement. It's the first webinar the General Curia has done. We were a bit nervous, but we wanted to pick a good speaker to start. So we chose you. I don't know if people are allowed to clap on webinars, but you can send those little wavy hand smiley images things if you want to type them in to show your appreciation. As I said, we will be coming back to this theme. In September, the theme of the webinar is 4 lessons on discernment from the Jesuit founding fathers. That's the September webinar. It's Herman Rodriguez from Peru, speaking from Peru in Lima, and we get you a date in the next couple of weeks. So Patxi, thanks a lot. Daniel, thanks for organizing everything. All of you, thanks for attending from all around the world. It's a great way to be part of the University of Jesus, and it's a great way to benefit from the expertise of the Universal Society. So let's keep each other in our prayers and keep in touch. And for technical issues or for downloading, just annoy Daniel Kenny and send him requests for help, and he'll sort out or who couldn't yet download the slides. Thank you very much. So over and out from Rome.
Thank you.
Patxi, thanks.
Thank you very much, Jonah. Thank you for all of you that have been patient enough to listen to the end.